Hello everyone, it's Bernardo here. We are back to uploading on the channel. I was away for a couple months without uploading. That's due to some work reasons. It has been a crazy couple months, a lot of trips, a few new projects, which is all good stuff. But now definitely we'll be back uploading here very often, and we'll not have this break again. Hopefully, as you can see, we also did a little bit of a rebranding. The channel now is called the Founder Sphere. I thought it made more sense, taking into consideration the message that we want to introduce here on the channel, the things I want to talk about, the things I want to address. That's a name that makes a lot more sense considering we're speaking a lot to founders or people who want to be founders, want to be entrepreneurs, want to start their own business. So that made a lot more sense, all things considered. So yeah, jumping into today's topic that I wanted to talk about is the college education system. Some things that I think can be improved. Some issues that I see with it. I see a lot of people on the internet saying that college is a scam and this and that and all these things, and I don't agree with that. But I do think that there are a lot of ways that in which it can be improved. Of course, like anything else in the world, there are many ways that the college education system can be improved. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit, and I'm also, I think, going to go deep into the matter of if you know that you want to be a business owner, if you know that you want to be an entrepreneur, how can you make the best out of a college experience, or whether or not you should go to college, and some things that I think make it sometimes can be make even more sense if you want to be an entrepreneur, for you to focus on if when building your business and when maintaining it over the course of an extended period of time, and how I think also a college of business should be structured in order to add the most value to the students that are attending. So to start, I think the biggest and most obvious issue, at least to me, with the college education system is the fluff. I think it's a very bloated system. I don't think that if you've chosen your major, that you should be taking 2 years of classes that are unrelated to your major. If I'm a business major, why on earth should I be taking um, art history classes or biology classes, or any of these electives? I think that that's completely useless, and it's a big waste of the students' money. These things are you're supposed to learn when you're in elementary school and high school. I really don't see the need to revisit these things in college. I think it's a complete waste of time and money for the student that's there, especially if you go into one of the fields in which you most definitely have to get a college education. Those being, medicine. If you're going to be a doctor, you have to go to college. If you're going to be a lawyer, engineering, all those professions, you of course you're required higher education. But I'm talking about those maybe, for example, business students who are there to learn business, maybe how to manage business, how to start and run a business. You don't need to be learning about biology or about art history, because those things at the end of the day are going to be worth nothing when you go out into the real practical world, where you're going to be dealing with real life situations. And then when are you ever going to think back to your art history class and try to pull something out of there that's going to be useful in the given situation that you presented in the real business world? So it makes no sense. So I think starting from there, I get the premise that, hey, maybe it's a bit much to ask, I don't know, an 18-year-old to make a lifelong decision of what they want to be. But there has to be another system to mitigate that problem. We could talk about this more deeply in a different video, but there has to be a different alternative other than just shoving these useless classes for somebody who, I'm using business example here, but making a business student take art history or take biology or chemistry, because they're not going to use that in their practical day-to-day life. So I think the problem starts there. I think there has to be a different way to solve the electives issue in college, which is something that I struggled with when I was personally going through college. Was the electives. There were some classes that I was sitting through there, and I was just thinking, like, what am I doing here? This is a full waste of my time. So I do think that the electives is a big issue that has to be fixed, somehow, some way. I think another issue is the lack of practicality. Now diving a little deeper into the business example, because that's what I did. and that's what this channel is about. I believe that it's a bit impractical to maybe put professors in there that have never ran a business, or they maybe have been out of the workforce for a while. If they're teaching, I'm just making an assumption that if they're teaching full time, they haven't been in the workforce for maybe a few years. That can maybe bring some issues of, are they maybe a little bit outdated on what they're teaching? Is the business world still the same way that it was when they were out there, when they were working? The business world is ever evolving; it's always changing. So I think it could be dangerous to assume that these professionals are up to date with everything that's going on in the business world. That's why I believe that the classroom should mimic the real world as much as possible. You should learn theory, of course, because that's the basis of everything, especially in the business world. But the practicality of it, I think, is even more important. For example, if you're a marketing major, or if you have a marketing concentration like I did, you should be taught how to run ads, for example, on Google or on social media or whatever it is. I was never taught that. So those are things, and those are situations that running a business, or in your day-to-day situations in the business world, you're going to encounter. And a lot of times, those things might have not been taught to you when you were back in college. Or another example, if you're an engineer, you should be trying to build things from the start, because trial and error is a real thing. You learn from your mistakes. I mean, I still do every single day. I make mistakes every single day in business, and you learn from them, and you get better from them. So I think exposing students to trial and error situations from the jump, from the first 2 years, is extremely important. Other than sitting in the classroom learning about our history when you're, I don't know, an engineering or a business major, or even going back to business, I think maybe, the importance of using CRM. That's something that I don't really remember learning either when I was in school. How to use a CRM tool? Why is it important? Combining that with ads, analyzing metrics, all these things, they're very important for you to learn from the jump. And sometimes they're only taught in the final 2 years, and when you only have 2 years to teach the full scope of a discipline, it becomes hard. It becomes condensed, right? So you might not even have the chance to explore those options. So I think the practicality of college education can definitely be improved upon. So jumping into the business aspect of it more specifically, there are a few things that I think you most definitely have to combine with your college education. If you want to, especially if you want to start a business, I think more specifically, if you want to start a business, you have to be doing these things added on top of your college education, so that you can have the best odds of succeeding when you go into the real world and start your business. And I think the most important thing is getting together with people that are where you want to be later in life. Someone who's successfully started a business or a startup, and is having success in that world and running it. Um, getting close to these people, picking their brains, creating relationships with them. Maybe getting them as your mentors. I think that practicality of the real world of somebody who has already done that is, I would say, as valuable as anything you can learn in a college classroom. I think that is extremely, extremely important. I think from experience, for myself, I've surrounded myself with very good mentors, and people that have taught me things that maybe I didn't learn in college. Of course, I learned a lot of valuable things in college, that I use on my day to day. But like I said, it's very tough to have a full scope of a discipline learned in 2 years of very condensed content that you're learning in college, and especially for business. So surrounding yourself with mentors is extremely, extremely important. It's vital, I'd say, if you want to succeed in business, and more specifically in entrepreneurship. I think that business professors, of course, that they're qualified. They're there for a reason. But I think that, especially if you're an entrepreneur, learning how to build a business or start a business from somebody who's never done it, um, to me, it makes no sense at all. It's kind of like trying to learn how to swim from somebody who's never been in the water. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why I think surrounding yourself with mentors, people who have gone through the process, people who have tried and who have failed, and in the end have experienced success, I think that's major, especially because it's a way for you to build connections and networking, I think in the practical business world, networking is monumental when defining an entrepreneur's success. So I think that that's very very important, and of course I think going out of your way to learn. College is great, but you can always learn more things on top of it. I think always doing research, always keeping yourself updated on new trends, new things. Like I said, the business world is ever changing. So unless you're fully confident in your professors behind the work, behind the scenes work that they do to stay updated in the business world, you should be doing that yourself. You should be going out of your way to find different tools and different things and different trends, and maybe getting ahead on trends that maybe to start a new business or something that's going to bring you um, success and achievements down the line. You should definitely get ahead and do your own thing. I think that for you to be successful in the business world, relying only on your college education is not enough. Especially because we see a lot of people in business who never went to college and are some of the most successful people in business that are out there. Of course, it's not a rule, but I think there are more and more examples as time goes by, and maybe with the modernization of the internet, that also happens very fast. You see a lot more um, people who are reaching millionaire, billionaire status that didn't go to college. I think, like I said, I think college is important. Definitely, I think it's more important for some professions than others, but I do think it's important. And I myself own a company who matches kids with college coaches so they can get recruited to play college sports. So of course, I think it's important. But you know, I do think that in today's world and how fast it's moving, you can't rely only on your college education if you want to move forward, especially in business. We can talk more in a different video about um, different fields of study, maybe engineering, medicine, science. Of course, for these things you need a formal education. You definitely do, but I think in business, where it's a little more subjective. Like I said, you see people who have success that maybe didn't go to college. You have to reach out and look for more. You have to be always looking for more, and that's I think that's a basic rule of thumb in business. If you stop in time, you'll get swallowed up, and there's no way that you're going to advance or keep your company or your business relevant if you're not keeping up with the trends of the business world. It's always changing. And to finish off the video, I'd like to give my 2 cents on what I think a business college education should look like in terms of curriculum from year 1 to 4, which is usually how undergrad business degrees are earned. I believe that from years 1 through 2, you should be learning core principles of business through a lot of project-based learning, learning about business tools, things that you can use in order to build a business, or how to make a business sound, from start to finish. Just very specific business training. I think that years 1 through 2 should be focused on that. On year 3, I think the students should be exposed to some sort of paid internship and real in-field experience. Just being out there in the real world, earning money is very important. Earning money is extremely hard. I think people underestimate the how hard it is to earn money. It is extremely hard. So I think exposing students to that experience where they're now applying the core skills that they learned in those first 2 years into the real world at a paid job, through a year 3 um, internship based experience. Of course, you're still doing things in the classroom, but you're actually working now. I think that'd be really cool. And then on year 4, you should do a capstone startup or business project. I think that's the best way to now solidify those skills, solidify what you've learned in the real world, in the corporate world, maybe in your year internship, and now you're building your own business start to finish. You're solving a real problem, you're building something, you're pitching it. Just a whole all around experience of the business world, from learning, from having an experience in the corporate world to now building your own business. So you're not only leaving college with a degree, you're leaving college with a portfolio, and now you're ready to jump into the business world at full scale. And some business disciplines that I think not even in the scope of these 4 years that I've just mentioned, but that could be practically implemented nowadays in school. Like, for example, I never had a negotiating class in school when I did business. You know, and how important is that in business? It's vital. It's almost the premise of business is negotiating. So how can you send somebody into the business world if they don't know how to negotiate? Um, that's something that's very important that I think could be introduced more massively into college programs, even of course financial literacy. I think that can be discussed more in depth, or you know, leveraging. Those are all things that I think an aspiring person who's going into the business world should know. You know how to optimize taxes for your business or even personally, but especially for business. You know how to manage taxes in the business. Those are all things that I think should be taught extensively um, in a college business course, and that's very hard to do in 2 years, considering that you take the other 2 years are elective courses that have nothing to do with your major. So yeah, all these things that are you know that are very important for somebody who's in business school. They I think they got to realize that you know they're not just getting a degree; they're learning skills in order to build a life after that. And I think that always has to be put in perspective for somebody going into college, and they should all look out for all those things when picking the best fit or the best program or the best college of business that they want to attend. I think those things should be very closely analyzed by somebody who is going to college to pursue a business degree. But that's just my 2 cents about it. I can talk more about other professions and other disciplines and tie those into college education in other videos. But I wanted to speak a little bit more about the business example on this one. And yeah, that's it. Like I said, I intend to be uploading on this channel a lot more often. And we'll see you on the next one. Always forward.